and welcome to Thorite Solutions. In today's session, we'll be seeing few differences as differences between M and DAX languages, differences between reports and dashboards, differences between Power Query, Power Pivot, and Power BI, and differences between calculated columns and calculator measures. So we'll be seeing few in the session completely regarding the differences. How do they difference between each other? So let's see the differences between M and DAX language. So as we know, we are very much in use of DAX language. And coming to the abbreviation of DAX, it is abbreviated as DAX Analysis Expression, whereas M as mashup language. And coming to the DAX, it's a formal language, whereas M language is a query language. And the instance of DAX are used to define KPIs and measurements, whereas Mashup cannot currently define KPIs and measurements. And the syntax which can handle calculations with one line of code, which is very much familiar in the DAX. Whereas in the mashup, we have conduct of sophisticated computation. Now, let's see the other differences as the difference between reports and dashboards. And the features in the reports coming to the pages. In reports, we can create multiple pages in a single report. Very being clear in that, that is, we have multiple pages in a single report. Whereas in dashboard, it is a single page display screen mainly used to display the summary data. Next, how do you create? In reports, we can create report in desktop or else in Power BI services. Whereas in dashboard, it is created only in Power BI services. Coming to the data sources, we have a single data set per report in Power BI services. Whereas in the dashboard, we can use one or more reports and one or more data sets per dashboard at the time of creation. Coming to the alerts, in the reports, we don't have an option to create an email alert. And whereas in dashboard, you have an option to create an alert for email, and this dashboard tiles gives on the certain conditions where they are met. If the conditions are met, then the alerts are appeared in the email. Okay, coming to the filtering, this feature report supports many filters, options like bookmarks, filters, and slicers, whereas in dashboard it only supports the bookmarks and does not support filters or slicers. Next, coming to the features of reports, which cannot set reports as featured report, whereas in dashboard it can set features. And seeing the dataset tables and the fields, yes, we can see the datasets tables and fields and values in a report, whereas in dashboard the functionality of this is not available. But you can export data where you can't see the tables and fields in the dashboard. This is the other differences between reports and dashboards. So nextly, we see the differences between Power Query, Power Pivot, and Power BI, how they are interrelated to each other. As Power BI, Power Query, and Power Pivot are related tools in the Microsoft Power Platform for data analysis and visualization. We are very much familiar with the Power Query, which is used for the extraction and transformation of the data. Whereas coming to the Power Pivot, where it is used for the data modeling, where we build the relationships between two tables if we are in need of it using the model view or the table view. Next, coming to the Power BI, as we know, Power BI used for the graphical representation of the data, which can be in the visualization form, and then where the reports are generated. So once the data is collected, how does it work? So here you can see in the diagram where the Power Query, Power Pivot, and Power BI. So this is the data where we can get from the Excel or from the SQL database or from the web link. So in the Power Query, once the data is connected, we fetch the data. Once we load the data, after loading the data, we just do any changes with the add or delete columns. Then where we do the complete preparation of the data set. After moving the data into the Power Pivot, you have an option where you can build the relationship. If you want to build the relationship, where the other process where you can go into the model view and you can set up the relation. And if you want to add some calculate or add some columns where you can do, we can create the measures. Then you can set up the KPIs and make a cube. Next, coming all the data once the everything is done. So we can move in the Power BI where the data on the report page where you can visualize the data. If you want to forecast and analyze, you can do. And therefore, whatever the charts you have, whether it's a bar chart or a pie chart, or in that page, you can make that page as an interactive page. And if you want to have an option, we have one of the component as Power Question and Answer, where you can use that as question and answer. Once everything is done, you have an option where you can publish and share to the organization or to your colleagues using the Power BI services. Next, the other option is to update the Excels. Once you update your Excel sheet, you do have an option where you can update and the sheet gets updated. And once you click on the refresh button in the Power BI, the data gets updated. And you have and this Power BI where we have it's been integrated with the R scripts and the Python scripts. So if you want in terms of using the Python script, we do an option of choosing the visualization. Once you choose that, where you can do. So this all in the Power BI where it includes. So in the Power Query, as we have the data, the backend process where you can find the M language, as we have seen the differences. And next in the query base, where we to create a measures, we go with the DAX functionality. Once the DAX functionality is applied, where complete Power BI, which involves the query and the Power Pivot. So this is the other differences between Power Query, Power Pivot, and Power BI. Next, let's see the common differences between calculated columns and calculated measures. So as we know, calculated columns and calculated measure, there is a slight difference. So when a new column based on calculation done on the existing column in the calculated columns, whereas in the calculated measure, we can visualize column created when used in a particular visualization. It is dynamically created. And the other differences in the column is, in the calculated column is, it can be created before the aggregation task is done on the data set. Whereas in the measure, it is created after aggregation task is done on the data set. Once the data is created, it is stored in the data set in the column. Whereas in the measures, it is not the data, whatever the column you create, the measure, it does not get stored in the data set after creation. Next, it can be used when need the value for formatting purpose. That is slices, row or column category in the calculator columns where it can be further carry forward. When next, it can be used when needed to apply aggregation to a value that shows a result. This is what in the measure formats. That is, as in the measures, we use the DAX functionality where it has different aggregation functionality, the counting functionality, the text functionality, the time intelligence where date and time is applied, and the parent relationship, different types of measure in the DAX functionality. So these are the quite basic differences between different functionalities like we have seen with between reports and dashboard, Power Query, Power Pivot, Power BI, next calculated columns, calculator measures. So thank you all.